Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are back with another Neurodiversity Stories, and I'm your host. My name is Darren Clark. So why have I put Neurodiversity Stories on, and why do we want to spread more awareness around neurodiversity? Good question you ask yourself, Darren. But guys, we created this purely for that reason, to hear other people's stories. I'm a massive fan of stories, and I really do believe that more stories should be heard around neurodiversity, and also, again, people's takes on neurodiversity. So that's why we've created this Neurodiversity Stories. And to be honest, guys, we've had a phenomenal response to this, and an incredible lineup of guests. And again, another phenomenal guest today. We've got Karen Cousins, who I've been following the content that she's been putting out on LinkedIn. She has an incredible book, which we're going to touch on and we're going to talk about in this. I will be introducing her very, very shortly. But guys, we do get a lot of people kind of connecting and tuning in from all across the globe. We get people from Argentina, from America, even in Australia. So if you could just let us know where you're tuning in from, and feel free to connect with anyone else that's tuning in as well. So guys, I also want to say a massive thank you as well to yourself for supporting this by either tuning in live every single Friday to watch these shows, or watching it on the replay. So again, if you're watching it on the replay, please do let us know your thoughts, and if there are any questions throughout this talk, Karen and I will do our very, very best to answer this as well. But guys, I also want to say, like I said, a massive thank you as well to our sponsors, Claro Software. I just want you to check out this. So guys, Claro Software develops assistive technology software for people with disabilities such as print and reading difficulties like dyslexia, to help to keep them to achieve all that they can. So a massive thank you again to Claro Software, who have been an incredible support. Like all of our sponsors, it really do appreciate your support on this. So guys, today we have Karen Cousins, and she's a music and dyslexia educator and coach, and the incredible author of the Dyslexia and Success, the winning formula, which I'm sure there are many people within my connections that have either have a copy of the book or seen the book. And I want to bring on Karen to explain a lot more around kind of her journey around neurodiversity, or how the book kind of inspired her to write this book. And I want to welcome Karen. Good morning, Karen. I'm just going to unmute.
Yeah,
we're all good. Good morning.
Lovely.
Good morning,
you can hear
Karen.
me.
Yes, we're all good. Good morning, Karen. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no. It's absolutely my absolute pleasure to have you. I know how incredibly busy your schedule is, so I was really thrilled when you messaged and said, yes, I would like to come on. So, So Karen, I've been following a lot of the content that you've been putting out. I think LinkedIn has been an incredible platform to spread more awareness around neurodiversity, but also I've educated myself on a lot of stuff that you've put out as well. So it'd be amazing if you could just share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I am a music and dyslexia specialist teacher. Growing up, I didn't know I had dyslexia. I knew that there was a problem. My parents obviously knew there was a problem. Probably the most noticeable thing was my sister could read my books when we were growing up. She was 2 years younger, but I couldn't read them. So my dad, I was lucky, I had a lot of support. Dyslexia wasn't really known about in the early 70s. When I was going to school, at primary school, people didn't really know that much about it. Teachers, definitely, most of them had no education on it whatsoever. So I had a lot of support. So even though they didn't know I had dyslexia, they basically supported all my learning. So, and as I got older, they would do one-to-one lessons. My dad would do one-to-one tutoring with me. It was intense. It was pretty miserable at times. But he was so desperate for me to obviously leave school with some qualifications so I could get a job.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was pretty miserable at times. But on the other hand, I did come out with 4 GCSE stroke O levels, because we were kind of the first year that were trialing the GCSE. So I had a mixture of the two.
Yes.
I think probably, like, once I'd left school, I went into a banking job. I was really happy to get the job, and I got it on an interview before I'd actually got my qualifications. So I was sitting the exams when I was offered the job. So of course, my parents were over the moon, and so was I, that I even had a job, because I think it was almost more than they could have ever hoped for. But once I was about a year into that job, it was pretty apparent I wasn't going to be able to manage it. Anyway, over time, I'd always had a passion for music. I'd learnt piano from about the age of 7, because my parents spotted that we learnt recorder at school. And I had brought this recorder home, and I was playing all the tunes that they were listening to on the radio. So all the pop tunes they had playing, I would just literally play them by ear. And they were like, oh, wow, she can do this. So they basically supported me in my music and sport, because I was good at sport as well. And I think really because I had that and I kept going with it, it was the only thing I was good at. Yeah. So I carried on with my piano lessons. I went to grade 8. And even though I'd started the banking job, I still followed that. There was like a little period in between where I went to an accounts department, and actually they sent us off to college on a 1-day release, and I did a business course, and I loved it. But again, I couldn't really do the written work. So had loads of support, friends from college, friends from work. They would all stay up with me half the night trying to get my work done. And that's how I got through it. So then I trained to become a piano teacher. I just kind of decided that I couldn't stay in the office. It was just never going to work. So trained to become a piano teacher. I absolutely love teaching. I think because of the difficulties I have myself, I find other ways to teach children. So, for instance, in music, multisensory learning, because we know that people with dyslexia learn best through multisensory learning, because the senses, especially that visual, movement, and really music lends itself to that. And in a one-to-one situation, I would have a little classroom at school where I've got one-to-one, and I felt I was very privileged to be able to have that kind of freedom to be able to teach these children in a different way.
Yes.
So I'm kind of lucky, because during that time, I probably skipped over a whole load of stuff. But anyway,
please go on. It's good to get. We can break down some of the things that you've got. It's really good to get the overall arching. So Karen, please go on.
So I would spot children that had dyslexia before the school obviously had spotted it. But that, I think, is because I'm in a one-to-one situation, and I was able to let the parents know, and obviously the school, and then the children will be tested, and then they get the right support. And, some parents would say, well, why didn't the school spot it? But actually, you're in a one-to-one situation. It's very different. Yeah. Anyway, I started, so I went off to university at age of 38 to study music. Wow. Yeah, what was really great about that was that I was able to actually do a lot of my research, looking on YouTube, videos. I went to talks, and it was really good because it was a lot more practical than, and a lot of the things were practical anyway. But it just really helped. And actually, when I spoke to a lot of the tutors, they said, actually, the research you're doing, people just don't think to do. So actually, they said, your research you're doing is actually better. Yeah. So it really kind of, worked for me.
Yeah. I find I shared this on, I think it was on last week's, we had an incredible chap, Matthew Head, right. and we were talking about how we kind of learn things. And I said I'm a massive advocate of that visual element of things, and looking on YouTube, for instance, and I will teach myself a new skill by looking at how other people do it, or those, and then so YouTube for me, it's been an incredible source to be able to understand and learn new skills. And I guess we do look at different angles of way of, not the standard way of teaching, I guess.
I think that's the thing. And, other music teachers will come in during my lessons and say, wow, how do you know how to do that? But it's just like an innate kind of thing that I would do. So some music teachers would just use a bog standard tutor book, and it's like, that's how you learn. Those kids will not learn very well learning like that. You've got to find other ways to teach them, because they might, if they're having problems with written word, they're likely to have a problem with written notation.
Yeah.
So you've got to find other ways.
Do you find, reading music, for instance, it can be challenging then? Is that?
Yes, because you're still having to process and follow the line of music, and particularly with piano, because it's multi-layered. So you think of a chord on a piano. If you were playing the flute, you'd have one line of music. It's a lot easier. But if you want to learn piano, and often these kids do, and I don't deter them, but it is probably one of the most challenging instruments for people with dyslexia if you want to read music. And obviously in Western society, I was classically trained and it was tough. But I wanted to do it. And I think if you really want to do something, you'll always find a way around it.
Yeah, I think, I think it's quite ironic, really, because I'm actually going to be, I've got my first piano lesson next week.
Oh, wow.
I'm 44, so very. So I'm a little anxious. The lady that's doing it is incredible, and understanding of the neurodiverse element of it. So and I was thinking, so it's really interesting when you're saying, the different ways of kind of being able to learn. I used to play the keyboard when I was growing up, but it was very much, I would listen to something on the TV, maybe, like a soundtrack or something. And then I would just sit there and I would just be hitting the notes and the patterns of the notes just by listening to it. And I never ever read, I didn't know I had dyslexia at the time then, but I never read the actual musical. I would just literally go from, well, that's that sound. This is similar. That's the pattern.
Yeah, and I think the strength from that comes, obviously, that you can play by ear, and that's a really good thing to do. But also probably composing and things like that. I find that people with dyslexia often are very good at creating their own music. Yeah. So they're the kinds of things that can kind of be nurtured. And I mean, I've had some students where they've written their own pieces and they're doing terribly in school, but they then go to perform this piece at a music festival or something, and the recognition that they get is just massive. And for self-esteem, because that really is my whole focus is on self-esteem. Absolutely. Because I know these kids are really struggling in school.
Do you find then, Karen, and it's just, again, just sort of popped into my mind. You kind of, so I've shared, my kind of dyslexia journey in the sense that I was kind of isolated in the sense of, from normal lessons. So you have that element of it. And then you take something like a musical instrument and the piano, which is very much, you can be judged again on, you can hit the wrong notes. It does literally take you out of that comfort zone, doesn't it? But it really can create that, that confidence element of it. But it must be difficult to go from that element to, to put yourself on center stage, so to speak.
Yeah, but I think the beauty of music is that you can do anything with it that you want. Yes. So it could just be for you. And some of these kids, like when they can play something that they really love, they can lose themselves in it. So it's also kind of a form of mindfulness at the same time. So you've got quite a few elements going on where, one, they could achieve something that, they get recognition from other people, but also it's a personal thing where emotionally they can kind of lose themselves in that.
Absolutely. And so do you play any other, I mean, I say any other, I mean, the piano is my absolute kind of favorite.
Yeah, and it always was mine, and it is a challenging instrument when you're trying to learn to read music. But I also played the clarinet at school, so I played the recorder, which I loved. And that's one line of music, and mostly I would play by ear. Then I learnt the clarinet, the violin, but I kind of got bored with them because I just really love piano.
Yeah.
So, but again, I went to about grade 7 on clarinet, and it's nice because obviously you're in a group environment.
Yes.
Yeah. So no, if somebody's good at music and they have dyslexia, I would always definitely try and focus on that talent. Yeah, I mean, I've got Tom Jones in the book. So Tom Jones, I've got a record producer, Phil Wayman, and he produced Don't Like Mondays by the Boomtown Rats. And he had a lot of 70s and 80s hits, #1 hits. And he said he was a drummer. He could barely read or write. He had no support at home, but he had this drum kit. And at 15 years old, his music teacher had encouraged him to do this drumming. And he went off and got himself into a band, and he went off into Europe. And I mean, this was years ago as well. So long before like where people did used to travel. And he said he was mixing with people like ABBA and people like that. And he said before he knew it, he said instantly, he said he worked out that he could actually produce songs and kind of put the icing on the cake of these songs that had been made. And although he was a professional drummer, he said he could see that there was an angle there where he could be even better. And he said, and I think that's the thing with dyslexia, you can always seem to see the big picture. And people sometimes say, are you psychic? And it's like, I'm not psychic. No, I just I don't know why, but I just seem to see an angle with things that will make a difference, or,
Absolutely. I'm just going to share a couple of comments. I put Jonathan McDonald, visual thinkers frighten those who become the modern system. We had Philippa who put people with dyslexia usually have excellent auditory memory. And thank you so much, Rachel. Wow, loving this episode. Thanks so much. Keep your comments coming in, guys. If I can share them on this, I will. And again, if you are tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from. So, Karen, I would love to have a conversation, if you may, around your incredible book.
Definitely. Hold on a minute. I just get a little marketing opportunity there.
I was hoping you had a copy visual for that. So tell us a little bit about it. What inspired you, and that would be great. Yeah.
So while I was in school, I mean, I raised 2 children as well. They're grown up now. Both have dyslexia and other dyspraxia, ADHD. But anyway, they've both gone on, focused on their talent. We supported them to do that. And they've both gone on to be really successful in their careers. So whilst I was teaching, and I could still see that dyslexia is such an issue in school, and I don't understand why. A lot of teachers aren't educated on it. They will openly tell me that. And it's really sad, because I know they would want to help, because teachers go into that profession to help. So whilst I was in school, it just kind of came to me, and I just thought, there's all these incredible people out there, like Sir Tom Jones, Sir Richard Branson, James Martin, Jodie Kidd. Kelly Hoppen has been a really big support for this project, actually. She's been amazing. But all these people, they've all achieved incredible things. And when I started telling the children what these people had done and they had dyslexia, they were like, wow, they were just kind of blown away by it. And I just thought, I've got to do something about this. So it was about 8 years ago I started this project. And the first person I contacted was Susan Hampshire. And she was the actress she was the first person with Duncan Goodhue, the swimmer. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people who are younger probably don't know these people, but Duncan Goodhue was probably one of my heroes, because I loved swimming.
I'm completely aware of who you're talking about.
Okay, great. So, so I met with both of them, and they were brilliant. And I told them what I wanted to do. And I said that what I really want to do is to get the winning formulas to how people have achieved success in their career, because I want to show these kids that they might not be getting A stars and you know, 20 out of 20 for spellings and everything else. But actually, there's other things that they're going to be good at. And because the thing is, the whole low self-esteem, it just spirals out of control. Anyway, so I decided that I would put this together and I would try to get as many people from different careers, a very broad range, to show how these people have done it. And I presented the material in a dyslexia-friendly format. So I used the BDA style guide. Amazing. So we followed that. I got a lot of support for this, I have to tell you. So that's with great. The actual writing of it, I got a lot of support, but the actual format, how I wanted it laid out and everything, it kind of grew because I only ever actually wanted this tiny thin, you know, almost leaflet that you open up.
Wow. Okay.
But once I started running the parent workshops and I showed them what I put together and how I'd interviewed these people, gathered their winning formulas to show how they achieve success, they were like, well, we really like the inspiring stories. It's really great, but we really need help now with our children. And some of these kids are like 10 and they're like, what do we do? What do we actually do? So my 1 year project that it started out at, that had already grown to about 2 years at that point, then sent me off on another thing altogether where I ended up going into learning support departments, speaking to dyslexia specialists, trying to see how we could kind of put some top tips for teachers, because I've worked in schools, I know how busy teachers are. They've got a class of 30 kids. They're working till goodness knows what time at night with prep work for the following day. They're already doing a lot. So I wanted to keep it really simple.
Yes.
And simple always works for me anyway. So I kind of really wanted to keep that simple. So we got as many kind of top tips as we could to help teachers to make their classroom more dyslexia friendly, but without it causing them a lot of aggravation, and to make it very practical. Yes. So we put a thing of top tips for that. Parents desperate for help. So we gathered some tips for parents to try to help them, show them different games that they could use with their children. So learning, it doesn't have to be through books. And people have this kind of fixed idea because it's very Victorian, isn't it? We don't need to be like that anymore. Times have moved on. You know, everything's going to change. I mean, and I don't think people quite realise the changes that will happen.
Yeah, I think we categorise it. I remember having a conversation and we were talking about kind of relaxation and, you know, kind of meditation, and then, you know, the different learnings out of it. And we tend to think of relaxation and meditation is, you know, you have to do this, but there's so many elements and so many layers of things, you know, with regards to learning as well. You know, it doesn't have to just be a textbook. It could be, you know, like we discussed, you know, just now around learning could be watching visual from a YouTube or a game or something else. There's so many layers to it.
I mean, the learning that goes on through games is quite unbelievable. And I spent a lot of time, my dad would play a lot of games with us so that we could learn that way. And you're learning like without even realizing, and parents don't always realize that. And obviously there's a lot of pressure in school that they have to tick all these boxes for, you know, for what, I don't really know, but they have to. So and they're so fixed on it that you've got to try to show them the bigger picture. And you know, that's kind of how the book ended up growing to be what should have been kind of like this. And I still, interestingly, I've put this book into Young Offenders Institutes. Amazing. So we've got them all through England, Wales, and now I'm on Scotland and Ireland.
Wonderful.
And interestingly, Park Prison in Bridgend, I think it is. There's a lot of good stuff going on there with learning support now. And the specialist there said that she loves the book and she said it needs to be used as a learning resource. So what I did was I sent her a PDF of it, or an ebook style. She could then print off the chapter that she wanted to give them. And also she will use it to educate the staff, because also at Feltham Young Offenders, I mean, they're trying to do a lot. I mean, it's had quite a bad reputation. And I mean, the percentage of neurodiverse prisoners, I mean, it's huge, absolutely massive.
I went on a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and it was around that, and the statistics element of it is very sad, to see such a high percentage, and there's so much work that is taking place there. But like I said, lots more to do.
Definitely, and and they said that they want to try to educate everybody, and I pointed out to the learning support specialists there that I had done research, and I'd spoken to somebody that had worked there in an operational role, no longer there, but he'd worked there for about 20 years, and he said there are people locking these kids up. They don't understand about dyslexia. They're given their menu cards for the week and so fill that out and hand it in on Sunday or whenever it is. But like you said, they don't know what day of the week it is in there. One day rolls into the next. They've already had a hard time. They can't complete the form. But the problem is these staff are not educated on neurodiversity, so they have no understanding of how to actually help these people. So, there's a lot of work to be done, but I'm just really proud that people have been supporting the GoFundMe project. And it's called Dyslexia and Success. You just go to GoFundMe, and people have been donating to that, and it's fantastic because it's making a difference already. Absolutely. Just by giving it to the Young Offenders Institutes, they're already, I'm getting so much good feedback from that. And now we're distributing to schools. Because that was the other thing, that I could see that there was such a need for this information. Nobody's got any time. Schools don't have any money in the state system. And I was lucky, I've worked in both sectors, but in the state system, they have no money. So, we have to give this book. We can't just expect them to buy it because they don't have any money. And actually, so donating one copy to every UK secondary school and college, that is my mission. And it is life transforming. People don't realise that. The simple messages that are in there showing what these kids can achieve. Yeah. I mean, I've got in there, obviously we've got all these well-known figures in the book, but also Oliver Wright, he's the political editor of the Times newspaper. Yeah. Often on the front of that paper, I would never believe that you could go into journalism with dyslexia.
I mean, when you think of journalism, it is, isn't it? It's a written format. It's very. I can imagine. That would put a lot of pressure for me, I guess. Going into that, but.
What I really liked was he said to me, because I've always been very nervous about using words that I can't spell, and my dad always used to say to me, "Don't use words you can't spell." And interestingly, and it kind of worked for me because I kind of have this very narrow vocabulary. You go over the same words all the time. Whereas Oliver Wright, no, he said it's other people's problem. It's other people's problem.
Do you find, Karen, so sorry, I completely get, I find that my verbal vocabulary, when I'm speaking, I tend to, I use, I absolutely love the English language. I love, learning new words and everything. But written format, I will literally write an email and I'm thinking, oh, that's a brilliant word to put in. Yeah. And then I will literally change the whole sentence around, delete the sentence, and then it will just be, a standard word, I will literally write the War and Peace on an email as well. But because I think you feel confident in, I don't want people to see that I might not be able to spell something. And I can always remember getting a letter from a parent that because I would write in the children's notebooks, practice hands separately. Well, I would write that all the time because it's a way of learning something. And I actually got a letter from a parent to say I keep spelling the word separately wrong. I literally was mortified. I felt so embarrassed. And I was quite new to teaching at that point. So what I did was, at the back of my diary, I wrote all the common words that I would use, and I wrote them all out. So I could then, when I wasn't sure, go to the back of my diary and copy it. See, I guess people don't realize how much goes behind the scenes of this. I shared this before, and I'll be very quickly on because I'm sure people's heard this story before. But when I started my first business, I remember I had a gentleman, this company we were looking after, very kind of high profile, but the person who was looking after the account was called Brian. Right. And I struggled with the name Brian, and I actually wrote Brain. So when I put the email out, I put Dear Brain, and then I wrote the email, and then my partner said, you do realize you put Brain. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I panicked. So I put Dear Brain, I'm so sorry for calling you Brian or something. And I remember sending out 6 or 7 emails, one after another, trying to recreate the problem. And it was just, it was that, I mean, I didn't know I had dyslexia at the time.
Sure.
There was some clues there, I guess, but sure. It's that panic, isn't it, of people perceiving,
I think because people judge you on that kind of thing, the fact they shouldn't is irrelevant. They do. Yeah. So and that used to affect me, but it doesn't obviously anymore. But it did when I was quite new to it. But what I love now, and what all these people in the book basically said, was technology now just masks so many of the difficulties that you'd have had before. And, I sometimes, if I've got a long text to send, I can just go on my iPhone, straight into Siri, say it, send it. It just works so well now, because I think before it was always a bit sketchy and it might put wrong words in and things, but it's so much more accurate now. If I get a long email from anybody, I will highlight the whole email, press speak, it tells me. So if I'm tired, I mean, I don't always do that. I do sometimes read, but if I'm tired, it really does help. So there's so many kind of strategies now that you can use. And that kind of is what I'm trying to show in the book is, and in fact, I have a chapter from Dr. Anna Pitt from the University of Oxford. Wow, and she also has dyslexia herself. She's on the BDA Music and Dyslexia Committee. But anyway, she wrote a supporting chapter on the latest evidence, neuroscience evidence that they've been researching. And it's really fascinating. And I mean, the summary right at the end basically is like, you've got all these creative skills from having dyslexia, the technology that is, evolving all the time actually is just benefiting people with dyslexia, and actually it's the new way forward. And people with dyslexia and other neurodiverse conditions, this world is they're going to excel.
Yeah. No, I
they're
totally
really going to.
I totally. Can I just ask? So you started the project, was it 8 years ago?
About 8 years ago, yeah. And I only got it published just before Christmas, so.
Well, again,
congratulations. A little bit.
No. I love the journey of it. I'm just interested to know, kind of, because I feel there has been because I've been focusing on dyslexia and neurodiversity so much over the past couple of years. But what was it like, kind of 8 years ago, when you were kind of because I find there's lots more kind of awareness around it. Still loads to be done, don't get me wrong, but there seems to be a lot more kind of awareness. What was it like kind of 8 years ago when you were kind of pushing this idea out? Was it
when I very first started it, it felt like there wasn't much at all. It really did. And because I worked in schools, I just couldn't really see that there was enough going on. And I'd have parents in tears. I mean, they would like come to me to ask me for help, and I just thought, well, I'm a music and dyslexia specialist. I don't really think I can help you with things like English and things like that. But obviously now I've been into schools and really understood what's going on. It's great. But yeah, back then, I mean, there just was very little support at all. And it's really sad, because I think a lot of it is that people aren't educated on it. And I interviewed Sir Jackie Stewart, and he just went to the end of the earth to try to help people with dyslexia. And he said he went to government, he went to the House of Lords. He said no one was listening. He really had to fight. And in the end, he's got teacher training for the whole of Scotland, all the teacher training centres in Scotland. And this was probably about 4 or 5 years ago when I interviewed him. So obviously things may have changed a bit since then, but he said for England, he said he's not a quitter, but he said even that
yeah.
beat him. He said he was trying to bash the door down, and he said he was getting nowhere. And I've spoken to teachers recently, young teachers that have recently trained, and they're still, I thought they were meant to be educated on dyslexia, but still they don't know. I mean, one girl said to me, she's been teaching for 3 years, and she said, "What is dyslexia?" And I thought, you're teaching a class of 10-year-olds and no one's told you what it is and how to spot it and how to support these kids. There will be at least 3 children in your class that have dyslexia that are going to struggle.
Absolutely. I just want to share, Philippa. Philippa would love to get a copy of the book for use. I think is it South Africa? Philip, so I will put a link and details all in the comments in there.
You.
Again, if anyone's watching that wants to connect with Karen to know more and how to get a copy of the book, then please do connect. You do definitely want a copy of it. Ruth Fenton, she said, is the book available as an auditory download?
Not at the moment, but I am working on trying to get that sorted. I mean, that was always my thing, that I wanted an audio book, but to get that done, it's quite a lot of work. So I'm not at that point yet, but I would love for it to be an audio book. I think there's so many different ways that you can. So on my iPad, for instance, I will put it on to speak, and I can. In fact, when I was checking through the book, so I had a really good friend who's an English teacher and a dyslexia specialist. So she edited all my work, but I still wanted to proof check it myself. So what I did was I had a copy of it on my iPad and I put it on to speak, and I would listen to every chapter. And it's surprising that even the copy editor would miss a couple of things that I would hear.
Wow. I always find whenever I'm again, I think it's just a classic thing when I'm reading something, and again I tend to miss out very small words like to and the or something. So it's in my head I feel like I've spoken it, I've written it, and then when I read it back I think, my goodness, there's someone would say what does this mean? You've missed the letter out. I'm thinking, no, it's there. It's not there. It's definitely there. No, it's not there.
Or it's there twice.
Or you've hit autocorrect and it's giving you a completely different word. I want to just bring on Matthew Heads, but I remember not being able to spell my job title, which was hard filling in forms. And something that you touched on as well around kind of in the prison service when they're given kind of menus and things and fill in the forms. And it was only I always find even kind of organization. So I went to the chiropractor yesterday, which again, incredible chap. But even the process of going in and seeing all the signs of what you need to do to adhere to, obviously the email that comes through, but then it's a case of the old kind of school, the form that you're given to fill out, and it's it's probably about 30 boxes, and it's I know it's standard sort of name, address, and then there's health questions and other things, but even some of those things, and it's nothing against the chiropractor in any way, shape or form, but it's just, I guess, the standard way that we want the information from another person, isn't it?
It is. And I think, I mean, my mum, even now, she struggles with forms massively. They send a form through. I can remember she had all these forms when her husband had died, and they'd be that thick. And it's just like, there has to be changes. I think they are trying to make things a lot more accessible now. And often these things will come through and say, if you have, any visual difficulties or dyslexia and things, you can ask to speak to someone. But
do you find that though? Because if, say, for instance, let's just take the chiropractor situation. Okay, yes. So walking in, it's very small practice. The person there is incredible. I've been there, before, and then you go in, and then you're given this clipboard with the form on there, and then it's a case of how then do you confidently then say, well, actually, I'm dyslexic. Do you have another way? And I can imagine then it's kind of, they're not going to be set up for it. It's a case of, then the last thing you want really from a confidence point of view, I guess, is then the chiropractor sitting next to you and then, helping you fill it out. I don't know. I mean,
it's really difficult, isn't it? And I think the thing is that if I had a long form, I know it's going to take me a long time to do it. Doesn't mean I can't do it. It means it's going to take a long time. So you kind of, like you say, you get through your name and address, which you can do. And then after that, it starts to slow down because my processing speed for reading is probably more the issue for something like that. So then I probably would just say, oh, sorry, I've only got partway through this form. It takes me a long time. Yeah. And I probably wouldn't openly say I have dyslexia.
Absolutely. And sometimes even when you say it, it's okay, I'm not too sure where to go for this. And I find a lot of the time when I'm given forms, they always use the terminology, I've just got a quick form for you to fill out.
Yeah, I hate that quick. It's never quick.
I think quick, it may be quick. Let me tell you. So I guess, there are, like I said, there are some companies out there that's doing some incredible things, but it's that, how do you then change, those kind of scenarios? Because I just think it's a long journey, isn't it?
It is a long journey. And I do feel like there's a lot of energy picked up around it, and that people are embracing neurodiversity now. Companies. So I had a lot of help actually from somebody at Universal Music, and they have done a manual called Creative Differences for the whole of their workplace. So just before the lockdown, they just done this, and I think they said that Walt Disney took on about 200 copies.
Wow.
So it is starting to unfold, and there is support and recognition, and people are recognizing also that it benefits their business to have a broad range of neurodiverse employees.
Yes.
And I think that's really good, because when I first went to work at 16 in the bank, if that had been embraced at that time, I probably wouldn't have left.
Yeah.
But you could never survive in that situation.
That must be tough. There's so many similarities in the sense of, the love of music. And I actually, when I was at school, I dreamt of working in a bank. And I just knew, leaving school without any qualifications was going to be pretty difficult to go and work in a bank. And I guess all it was I wanted to just wear a suit. I know it's crazy. I wanted to wear a suit and a tie. And I guess I just wanted, maybe because of that confidence element, I thought if I wear a suit and a tie and I go and I work in a bank, like I've made it in that sense, because it can fill me with, especially where I was isolated a lot in school, that element. But I can imagine, that there's certain parts within the banking industry, there's a lot of pressure, especially on the neurodiverse.
I think, like you say, with the suit and everything, and I was the same, and I had like a really strong sense of self-worth. Probably I felt the greatest when I went into that job, but as time went on, obviously I was never going to survive, but initially I felt great that I actually got a job, and that I was going to get paid, and somebody valued what I was doing. But as time went on, I would never have survived. But that sense of self-worth is so important.
Oh, hugely. I remember, my first job, pushing trolleys at a supermarket. Yeah. But I actually felt, because there was, I kind of knew the structure. It was a case of when the bays get full up, I empty them, and it was, it's a process in that. But for the first time, I actually felt like I was offering value. And I wasn't being judged on, those aspects. And I always had this, and this is where I kind of always thought about where, progressing into a role, I did feel that I was one of the most important people, as a team within there, because I would always go, if no one has trolleys, then they can't put the stock in, they can't purchase the stock. So, so I've always thought whatever role I'm in, I've always thought it is an important integral part of, of the company.
Definitely. I mean, Susan Hampshire, one of the lovely quotes, and she said to me, is that people can go on to be the most marvelous gardener, painter, mother. And I really love that, because it isn't all about success where you're making a lot of money or you're famous. And I just thought that was lovely because, you know, really kind of trying to get kids to understand that there are things that you can feel important and have self-worth in anything.
Yeah, I think because we do naturally, you know, you mentioned and I mentioned a lot, and we see this around, especially around dyslexia. We do think of, you know, the famous actors, and then we think of, you know, the billionaires like Richard Branson, and you know, sometimes you're thinking, well, actually, I just need to get through writing this email, or you know, looking at what job I need to do, or these other elements, and there's so many things that we're succeeding within our lives.
That's it.
Rather than scaling, thinking, okay, so I have dyslexia, I now need to make sure that I become a you know, successful as.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be famous to be successful, or you don't have to be rich to be successful. Success is how you see it. But I did really love that. But everybody in this book says about self-belief. It's so important.
Karen, could you just show me the thickness of the book?
I can.
Just because.
Can you see that?
I can't. That to me is incredible, because I'm still amazed at the fact that when you first started this out 8 years ago, 7 years ago, it was going to be like a pamphlet, and then the journey that it's been on, and you've been on, you know, re-educating yourself in certain elements, bringing those in. You must feel incredibly proud.
I do. I mean, once it was in print, I could hardly really believe it that I'd done it. I mean, I said, I said, like, when I think back to myself at 16 at school, like, and it was always quite funny, like, although I didn't get stuff at school, it was considered quite funny amongst my friends. But I said, I just feel like, wow, I would never have believed, one, that I'd get a degree, two, that I would do this book.
Well, you should feel, you know, incredibly proud. Is there you don't have to answer this, but is there future projects that you're working on that you're probably not allowed to tell anyone, or are you just really, from doing that?
I'm just so passionate about this project that I just want to get it out there, and I'm just really gonna start trying to get with the GoFundMe and go to businesses and see if they can help to get this into schools and get them on board. So that's kind of my next mission. Amazing. To draw, you know, and get support from companies to see if they can help.
Absolutely. I'm just going to bring in this comment, and then we'll quickly talk about how we can help and support on that. So Millie Moss put success looks different to everyone, and that's why relatable role models are so important. This is something we talk about in the future first. I totally agree, Millie, in that. So important. Thank you for sharing that. So Karen, how can people get involved with this and help you know, spread more awareness around this book, get it into more hands? How can they how can we help?
Well, I mean, if you can spread the word about the GoFundMe page, which is called Dyslexia and Success, and that's at gofundme.com. The book is available to buy on Amazon, and you can have it either in black and white or colour. Both versions are still on cream paper, but just not coloured images. And I only bought the black and white one out to make it more affordable. I do know that Sen Books and Helen Arkle are going to be able to sell the coloured version slightly cheaper. So, but at the moment, it's all available on Amazon.
Fantastic.
So brilliant.
Karen, we're coming up to the end of the talk. Like I said, I always do this with my guests. There's so much I would love to continue talking to you about. I will put any links, and please feel free to put any comments underneath this video on any links that you would like, you know, people to kind of get involved in, or links to the book. And again, if people would like to get in contact with you, Karen, how's the best way?
And I've got a website that is dyslexiaandsuccess.com. So you can contact me through that.
That's fantastic. Karen, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting with you on here. Thank you so much indeed for sharing your story.
Lovely. Thank you, Darren. Thanks for having me on.
You're most welcome. And best of luck with the book. And if I can help in any way, shape, or form, then please do share.
Lovely. Thank you, Darren.
Okay, have an amazing weekend. Take care.
Thanks, and you. Bye.
guys, that was Karen. I hope you really enjoyed that episode as much as I did. The book is incredible. It didn't the journey to making that book. I know that Karen has been on, and then she shared kind of just a snippet of that. So it's just incredible the amount of help that it's going to be doing organizations, schools, in the prison service as well, and beyond. So if you can support in any way, shape, or form with that, then please do connect, guys. Thank you as always for tuning in to Neurodiversity Stories. Like I said, we do this on every Friday at 11 a.m. UK time. If you'd like to be a part of this and share your story, then please do get in touch. Other than that, thank you so much for all your comments, likes, and getting involved, and all of our guests. I will see you next Friday for another Neurodiversity Stories. Take care, peeps. Cheers. Bye-bye.